Hello, Mike. Thank you for joining me all the way from Toronto. How are you today?
Hey, yeah, really good. Excited to talk to you.
So, you're going to be chatting with us about old world Toronto and some
I am.
anomalies that you've found. I think you've got some images for us as well, haven't you?
Yeah.
Before we start, when did you get into Tartaria?
Yeah, I've been a conspiracy theorist my whole life, but August of last year of 2024, very, very recently, I watched the Old World Order documentary that our friend Martin is in, and I'm an Uber driver. I drive around Toronto anyway, and I just started noticing all the stuff that they were talking about, all the stuff that my lunch break talks about, and that kind of stuff. So I know the city like the back of my hand. And then I was just, how did I never notice this stuff before? So now I can just picture the whole city in my head.
Everybody says that when they first discover Tartaria, they instantly say, "I don't know how I walked past these buildings for so long and didn't notice." But the problem is that that's the majority of the population. I don't know what about your circle of friends in your family? Are they kind of on the same page as you?
Oh no, no, not at all. Some people, I've got my dad into it. My dad's always followed. I've been a conspiracy theorist since the Behold the Pale Horse days back in 1994 when I was really young. So my dad's onto it. A couple friends, a little bit here and there, but some acquaintances more have kind of reached out and I've gathered some people that way.
So, what have you found in Toronto you want to share with us?
Yeah, so I'll share the screen, I guess. So
Brilliant. It's great when people have got images that they can share because otherwise it's just two people having a chat, which I know people quite enjoy sometimes. But when you've got something to show people, it takes it to another level because they can see exactly what you're talking about.
definitely. So I thought I'd start here, um, of geographically where Toronto lies. These are the Great Lakes. You have the states down here. Canada, like Ontario, is populated only like below this line, pretty much. Everything up here is, they say, just bears and mosquitoes. There's not really
Okay.
much up a lot up here. There's native reserves. There is some people, but there's no real major cities above,
Yeah.
right
Okay.
about there. Um, Toronto is on Lake Ontario right there, and we have Niagara Falls right across the lake.
Yeah.
Um, as you zoom in, there's highways in Toronto on all four sides. You have the Toronto Airport right here, which their first flight, they opened their doors 2 days before the start of World War II. I think it was April 19th or something, and then World War II started 2 days later.
Is there a
And
connection there? Have you found something? Because that's very unusual, isn't it? Or is it just a
e-
coincidence?
yeah, no, a lot of the strategy in the war was based on the airplanes being able to get in and out of this area, Canada in general, and yeah, I don't know, I don't know much about it. I'm kind of uh, picking up the pieces in a lot of different places, so there is something there. I haven't had too much time to go too in depth into it
Sure.
yet. So the area that we're going to be talking about today is this area kind of right here.
Yeah.
The Toronto Fire of 1904 was here. This is the exhibition ground and the Star Fort, Fort York.
Wow.
Exhibition is a World's Fair,
Yeah.
but I don't know why they called it an exhibition. I've been asking Google, I've been looking it up. They just say Toronto just decided to go a different way and have an industrial fair instead of a World's Fair. I'm not really sure why. Um, so you have High Park right here. I
Yeah.
believe that the Great Lakes are man-made. I really do. It's weird, but I do. And I feel like a lot of the dirt that came out of here has gone into making a lot of big hills in the city. The city basically starts here and just goes up all the way. There's even different climate zones here than there
Wow.
is here, just because of this hill and because of the lake effects, because of the Niagara Escarpment, because of certain geological places. So um the
So, do,
stuff,
so what
yeah.
makes you think that? What makes you think that they would actually dig out to create a lake? What are they doing with the soil?
Well, that's where I get confused because I'm not 100% a Tartarian researcher and I don't completely understand the mud flood. I was of the opinion that mud flood could even or different resets. I mean, maybe there was a catastrophic event where there was actual mud flood, but I feel like mud flood can also be a tongue-in-cheek reference to burying churches because or these big structures because if you have a mud flooded windows and it's just the tip of a building, they obviously chose where they were going to make the hills and where they were going to make the valleys based on, I believe, burying the bottoms of these of these structures of these churches.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, that makes
So
sense.
so whether or not the it's man-made isn't that important because you have ravines, you have all kinds of valleys and hills and stuff. So you could just displace the dirt and just move it around, but
Yeah.
I'm just curious sometimes as I try to approach things from not believing anything. And
Yeah.
some of the waterways, the um what's it called? The Humber River goes all the way. It's like through the city, all the way up to and connects to these waterways. Some people, I've heard people say that some of those channels and stuff, right, could have
Hmm.
been could have been man-made. So,
So dig out the channel and then fill the lake with water from the
and
lake.
you
The
need
other,
the
yeah,
water for
yeah,
the electrical grid and stuff like that.
yeah.
Yeah, it's so this is the Gardner Expressway. This is the highway that runs the whole length of the south of Toronto. It
Yeah.
was built in the 50s, and I'm suspicious of it. I'm sure people in Toronto, I wasn't born and raised in Toronto. My parents weren't telling me stories about Toronto growing up. They didn't have personal attachments to Toronto. I've been here for 20 years. I know it, but I don't know it like somebody who might have grown up here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I grew up an hour west of Toronto. So it's hard to believe memories of really anybody. I'd have to trust my grandparents' memory of when this was built in 1957 or something, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they weren't traveling around like that. So
Sure.
um, whether it was built in 57, I believe that the foundations, that the difficult engineering, math and everything was done before 57. It might have replaced it something else. So we're
What
gonna
what what
start
what makes you say that, Mike?
because of the engineering of the bridges around the city and applying some of like my lunch break and some of those theories just to Toronto.
Yeah.
So some of the bridges, which we're gonna get to in a later meeting. There's no construction photos. There's not convincing construction photos, and there's just a bunch of white guys with top hats standing in front of a completed project.
Sure.
So and it looks similar to the Gardner. It's basically a huge bridge already. So just the bridge engineering and stuff. It just it's my thought, but
Yeah.
it's not really. I'm not. It's not a hill that I'm going to die on.
Yeah. Yeah. Of course. So, have you got anything you want to share with us? Any
Yeah.
images?
So right here you have from High Park. This King Street. right here, and then it gets into all of the exhibition grounds. So
Right.
I'll start here. These are the star forts in the area. Okay, this is another reason why I'm suspicious about this lake, because we have our
Wow.
Fort York right here, but they're cornered on all these ends. So
Yeah.
maybe they're connected under the water, you know?
Yeah.
And then you still each lake, and
They're
maybe
all
there
star
was,
forts.
yeah, this is
Wow.
somebody plotted all the star forts in the world on Google Earth.
That's incredible.
Yeah. Um, so we are here. Oh no, yeah, we're here. We're
Yeah.
here. So um this is where we are. This is the Gardner Expressway. It's not raised yet. It raises up here.
Yeah.
But as a kid, you would always be driving into Toronto here and you would see these cool gardens here that have the advertising on them, right?
Yeah.
But you wouldn't look and see these spires. So there's one there
Right. Yeah.
and there's one there.
Yeah.
Okay. These are them up close. A lot of Toronto architecture all over the city
Wow.
looks like that.
And the steps up to the front door as well.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And that's not an anomaly. There's hundreds of these around the city. And just it was difficult to find, but I think it's in these trees right here. You'll have, oops, this.
Oh, yeah. That's fantastic. And that is just that's just a house.
Yeah, yeah.
And
It could
that,
be split up into multiple apartments,
yeah,
most likely. But yeah, it's just
it's not a government
it's just a
building.
residence. Yeah.
Yeah. And that looks like that it's quite bright, the image, but that looks like that's got a copper roof.
Uh-huh, definitely. And
Yeah.
we're gonna see a lot of copper roofs in our journey. And you have this is all lake right here.
Yeah.
So I'm curious if I'm not getting ahead of myself, right? I believe that there's a ancient EMF power grid connecting all these tippy tops of all these copper roofs. And I'm curious if these are located on the lake shore like that because they were powerful enough to transmit across the water all the way to Niagara
Right.
Falls.
Yeah.
So this is that same corner. This where we were was just over here, but you'll see that this is located right on the corner because they have to keep that power grid moving along these channels.
Yeah.
So all
Sure.
over the city on the corners, you will see a building that looks like that.
On the
You got
corner,
to
literally every corner in the city, there is a
not every corner in
yes,
the city, but a
but
lot.
a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
And the mud flood. I mean, look at this. They're mud flood windows, aren't they? They've all got basements, haven't they?
100%. Yeah.
Mm,
I know someone who told me not here, but so this is King Street as well. You have to remember this is King Street and Queen Street,
mhm.
which I think
Okay.
is so interesting because
Yeah.
and I've also, as I've looked around at star forts, you'll always see uh, 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 a Queen Street near Starfort,
Yeah.
I find. Um, so as you go, I'm going to do
Oh,
both
wow.
sides. As you go, so where I'm going to go up this street right here, and then I'm going to
Okay.
go back down this street right here. So if you go up here, it's Roncesvalles Street, it's called. And this is just a church, St. Vincent de Paul Roman Catholic Church.
That's one hell of a church, isn't it? Look at that. I mean, that's
I
that looks like the entrance to a Roman temple.
right.
Mm,
And these are scattered all around the city, just kind of mixed in. Like you'll
mm.
just have a coffee shop or a pizza place, and then one of these next door, you know?
And have you
Um,
noticed how they're always a church, a bank, an insurance company or some government offices, maybe like a post
Definitely.
office, or every single time. And I think that that has got something to do with having an element of control over who comes in and out of the building.
Definitely. 100%
They
security
wouldn't want
guards
you and I having a rummage around there.
for sure. And I was of the opinion that you could. I walked into this church actually. It's not that impressive really inside. But a lot of the churches you have to set up appointments and stuff. You can't just go in and
Mm.
walk
Could you
go
go
for a tour.
downstairs in there? Were there stairs going down to her?
There was, and there was a basement. It's just like a hall.
Mm.
It's just there was a bunch of, people playing cards down there or something. It looks like a cafeteria.
I wonder if there's another level underneath that.
Exactly. We have
Mm.
a school called Central Tech downtown Toronto, which is so funny because I think it's the central technology of the city.
Right.
And it has seven basements, seven
Oh,
known basements.
really? So 7 levels of basement.
Yeah, they say that there's a gun range down there. There's a
Oh, wow.
bowling alley, or there was. I mean, it's a high school now, but
Mm.
I don't know what it looks like. We're coming up to Open Doors Toronto actually, and a lot of these places are opening their doors. And I'm gonna try to hit as many locations as possible
Hmm.
in a 2 day period at the end of May, May 25th and 26th, I think. So
I'll be in
there's a
Vancouver then.
yeah. Oh, that's
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. I'm in Vancouver from the 14th. Yeah. Until I think the 27th, something like that.
Yeah.
28th. 28th,
Swing
I think.
by.
Yeah.
Swing
Yeah.
by. It's only a couple of hour flight. So there's a YouTube channel called Mystery North. I believe it used to be called Tartaria Mystery North or Mystery North Tartaria. I don't know if he changed it or if that's just his handle on other places, but
Sure.
Mystery North on YouTube goes into a lot of the description of what some of these carvings might mean. And he calls these curly whirlies, and you'll see them all over the place. So this is the side of this building. So what we were just looking at is right there. Okay.
Sure.
So you were asking about the basement. It's right
Mm.
there. You can see in, but I'm sure there's other levels. But I'm not sure about ages of brickwork. I don't know when certain things were built, but we know that we consider these red and white a battery, right?
Yeah. Yes, we do. Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that was a facade. I think like this is two different eras. This was built maybe by one civilization, and then this was maybe built by another civilization.
Sure.
D- I think that's might be how the theory goes, but I'm not sure. I guess I lost that. So around it, you'll have other buildings like this. You'll have there's too many churches in the city. There's way too many churches. Um,
Crikey.
with the geometric windows and the organs and the bells
Hmm.
would work in conjunction with each other with maybe another technology that might be inside of these churches. Because remember, if these are mud flooded and these windows were supposed to go deep, deep down, they've built this the floor inside of the church for the people so that the people could walk into it.
Yeah.
But if this was used as a power station at one point, it could have been the residents, the wood there would have blocked the residents, right? You would have wanted a
Yes.
huge, you don't want a blockage there. So the floors have been built. And so if the old churches, if they were burnt down, they just burnt all the wood, right?
Yeah.
They just burnt everything wooden. And I want to add that I think that they've gone around and burnt things to make sure that there's no secret notes hidden in any nooks and crannies in the churches of anybody
Yeah.
writing a note saying they reset us or they did this or that,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's a
So
nice theory. I like that.
so now this is going the other way. So
Right.
this is King Street now. So this is to the east. We were to the west, to the northwest, and now we're to the east on King Street of where we just were.
this is an interesting building because it not only shows you that it's been raised, but also to see those are they windows? Now, to me, they're windows, but I often wonder with buildings like that, where sometimes where there's a recess, if there was a statue in there at some point and it's just been filled in. And my argument with the mud flood windows is that you don't build something like that and then have steps leading up to it because it makes it harder to get things and people in and out of. You just wouldn't do it unless there was an issue with flooding in the area constantly. There would be no purpose for it. And it looks like on the right hand side under that window that there's something's happened with the brickwork. They've
Yeah.
filled it in. It seems to me that that's been filled in, and the actual sill going along the bit underneath that appears to be
Oh,
one solid
this.
piece, where the rest seem to have joins. So that looks like that was maybe a much larger window, and they've put a floor in or removed whatever was
Definitely.
underneath it. So it's been altered, hasn't it?
Our friend Campbell Purvis, Autodidactic, just put out a video this morning on YouTube about the missing statues and even engravings. This could have said
Mm,
something at
yes,
one point,
absolutely.
but more likely this was a balcony window or something like
Yeah.
that. Um, but there's a lot of facade work going on in Toronto too, and there's admitted facade work. So any of this stuff could have just been put over top, like cleaned up, new
Yeah.
bricks,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But interestingly, see, this is King Street. You have a lot of old buildings, but you'll always have. I think this is a power plant, but what is
Hmm.
those 5G towers or something?
Yeah.
There's clearly
Some. Yeah.
frequency work going on, right? And then
Mm,
look, you're gonna have one of those always.
mm.
And looming in the background at all times is always this, the CN Tower,
CNN Tower. Yeah. So do we know how old that is?
77.
Right.
So, I mean, my dad watched it hypothetically, if he grew up in Toronto, could have watched it get built. He was aware. He was reading the newspaper in '77 when it was being built. But it's too coincidental. I mean, if to talk about the CN Tower, it's called the tallest tower in the world,
Mm.
but the people are here. All of this is just radio and antenna and telecommunications and stuff like that. So I always used to joke it was the tallest in the world until somebody beat it by a couple feet. And I always used to say, just throw a pool noodle on top of it and you'll be back 2 feet above that other one. But I think that there may have been a Tartarian tower at one point that was knocked down in that same place and it was kind of rebuilt.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Yeah, we could have had an
So
airship tower there or anything, couldn't we? A Tesla style tower or an
exactly.
airship docking station.
Exactly. So I'm not going to dizzy people by turning this around, but that thing that we just were on, this is the back of it. And
That's incredible, isn't it? Look at that. Like fish scales. I've seen
that's what
several
I
of
think.
those. Yeah, they do
Those
look like fish scales, don't they?
it's reptilian. It's like a lizard or something. And
Yeah. And the back of the building, it looks like, as you said a second ago, it's quite possible that, that could be red brick, and they've just filled over that. And at the back, it looks like plaster or whatever they have covered it with. The textured masonry coating is sort of coming away.
oh, I'm not sure exactly what you mean, but yeah. And this
There's sort of
looks
cracks,
to be a
the
part of
horizontal
this.
cracks. Yeah, I was chatting to someone the other day who wondered whether or not that some of these buildings with the round windows, not just places that we would now call churches, but some of these, is it possible that actually that was the entrance for a vacuum train, that they were going through these buildings? And I thought, I
Whoa.
love that theory. I wonder
Like
if
the
it's,
Jetsons.
yeah, I just wonder. Sometimes I wonder. I know,
Yeah,
obviously,
that's a good one.
most of the windows are so, you can tell by the design that they're some cymatics, aren't they? And they're to do with
Yeah.
frequency and vibration. But I thought it was a really interesting comment that he made.
Me too. I love that. So I don't know if this was the one we were just looking at with the 5G towers on it, but they're always right beside each other.
Right.
So you can tell that they are frequency important areas that are uncovered. Like as the crow flies, they can
Mm,
easily connect to each other, right?
sure.
And then you'll always have a huge school next door. And that's fine. The kids need to go to church. There needs to be a school beside the church, but there's more to it than that.
Mm. Yeah, I think so too. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a particularly impressive school. There are some that are unbelievable cathedrals and basilicas with unbelievable schools beside it all over the city with carvings, with statues, with engravings, with Greek gods on them and stuff.
Wow.
But we're not going to get to those today.
Okay.
There's
Another
another one
time.
we can quickly go past that. That's just the
Yeah.
same area. This is Dufferin um, uh, corner. Right ahead of here, we have the exhibition, which, and so then you still, on the corners, you still have something like this. And
Yes.
that is an old bank uh, that like you were talking about.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, those are just more corners. Every corner, you see, you always have to have a connection
That's
on the
incredible.
corners going around. And this one travels down this street, right? A lot of them are purposely put in places that they can travel freely, the frequencies. I think these buildings are connected are involved somehow with these, but I don't know anything about that.
Certainly looks like another. Well, look at the entrance going into it. I mean that you don't
Stonework.
do
It's
that,
this
do
is
you?
it's like a moat. This is like a
Yeah.
moat
Yeah.
down here,
So they've
right?
really
You could
raised that path up. The road and the path has been raised, hasn't it? Or they've dug
yes.
down around the building,
Exactly.
dug it out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And a lot of times in the city, like this could have been the roof of a stone building,
Hmm.
and then they just built this on top. So this
Yeah.
could be a whole, you know, and
Or
you
the
see that a lot of places in the city. You'll see a lot of this stuff halfway in a building, and it'll be stone on the bottom and brick on the top.
yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
So, I wonder how it looks. There's the 5G
And
towers.
look at what we build now. When you look at that block of the apartment block next, it's just what's going on. I often think
Exactly.
I don't believe it because they can just make as much money as they like now. It's just fiat currency. They can put as many zeros on their bank account balance as they want to. It's clearly not about money. I think that it's
Definitely.
actually to keep us in a low vibration, to have us surrounded by very negative walls and buildings. And so we're sort of, I don't know, it's kind of like a bit gloom and doom, isn't it? And
Yeah.
so I don't think it's about
Oppressive
cost.
oppressive architecture.
Absolutely, absolutely oppressive, and I think that that's how they want the people inside to feel too. But also, I often wonder if they build them that way now, and obviously a lot of more modern buildings are glass and metal framework. Is that so they come back down quicker?
Yeah, that's a good point. Or they're not important. Yeah, they could easily, yeah, just be wiped away. I
Yeah,
think there
yeah,
will be a time where they unbury those churches, and yeah, they've made sure that they've built things in the empty space that they can take down easily. Yeah, that makes
yeah.
sense for sure. So this was where we were sitting on the Gardner with the gardens on it. This is King Street where we just were. This is Roncy where we just were, and then we've just been exploring this neighborhood here a little bit.
Yeah.
We were right here where that bank was a second ago. So if you go down this street, Dufferin Street now we're into the exhibition, the World's Fairgrounds.
Okay.
So you have the medieval times right here. You know what that is?
No.
Oh, medieval times is it's a chain. It's a chain restaurant where they serve big turkey legs and they'll have knights on horses
Oh
and
yeah,
stuff.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Got it.
Uh,
Have you been?
uh, no, no, I haven't been to that specifically. Um, so down here you have Fort Ruiz
Right.
Monument. So this was once a fort, and I don't know. I'm sure it was a star fort. I don't know why it's not on my map of star forts. I don't know the difference 100%, but Fort York is right there. And then you have the Fort Ruiz Monument right there. So, anyways, right beside the Garden of the Greek Gods and this little statue right there. So, that statue is, oops.
Oh, wow.
Oh, I got ahead of myself a little bit. That statue is in front of this building. This is the Liberty Grand. This is one of my favorite. I mean, these things are amazing, obviously. You have the lions in front.
That's
Um,
incredible.
but I think they sent a construction crew around like a with a chisel, and they chiseled all of these in one day, in one week. These Ontario government signs, because it's the same font all over the city. And you know how they'll make like an a V to make it
Yeah.
look older.
Uh-huh.
So I don't know. This is the Ontario government crest or whatever, but who are these guys? And you got the curly whirlies.
Yeah. How old do they say that is?
Oh, I actually did not look that up. That's a good question. Yeah, it's tough.
It looks
I'm
like
doing
every
this
other
all by
World's Fair.
myself. I would look up every building in the city if I could, you know? But it's so in when I was looking up the World's Fair, the exhibition information, they did mention facades. They did say that they were temporary structures, and and most of them were knocked down, and then what was built in their place has some of it has got facades over top of it. So we know that just means that they put facades over top of the originals
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. And that looks like every other World's Fair or exposition, doesn't it? It's
I think
always the
so.
same. And my belief is that they were all connected. All of these World's Fairs, the grounds, the central buildings were all linked through tunnels of one description or another. I don't know if they again are pneumatic trains or what was traveling through them, but I do believe they're all connected. That
Mhm.
they're almost identical, aren't they? And you can look at a World's Fair in New Zealand or Samoa, and it's the same bloody building. Every single time we see the same building. Um, and normally the backstory is that it was built in a year or less, and
Yep. Yep.
the architect will be relatively unknown. That will be the biggest thing they've ever done, and probably be in their mid 20s.
Yep. Sometimes they built 40 or 50 cathedrals and stuff in their 20s. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
And I mean, this is right on the water too. So this could easily be connected across the water to
yeah,
Niagara Falls.
yeah, yeah. Which, of
And
course,
if you,
the Chicago World's Fair allegedly was.
we're not super far from there.
No, no, you're not at all, are you?
But you're talking about tunnels. You don't have to dig a tunnel if you're just covering things in mud. You just have to lay the tube down and then cover it in dirt.
No, I mean that the tunnels were there before, that the
Yeah,
Tartarians built the tunnels and had vacuum trains. And my theory is, are some of
I
them still
see.
operational? Because Musk has been on about opening a tunnel or building a tunnel between
Yeah,
America and the UK.
I've
Now,
seen footage of him driving around in tunnels.
see, my guess is that those tunnels are already there. And then that leans towards a conversation that you and I had earlier before we came on. And that was, is the world spinning? And is it a globe that's spinning at 1,000 miles an hour? Or is it
Yeah,
flat? And by flat, obviously, there are mountain peaks and there are, the bottom of the oceans are miles long. So we're not
exactly.
saying flat, flat, but is it a floating rock or is it a spinning ball? Now, surely to
Or is
be
the
on top.
curvature, is it just much bigger than we think it is? Because the
Oh, I think it's
curvature
that.
could just be the curvature could just be off. So it appears more flat to us
Yeah.
because it's round. I don't really believe that, but that is an option, you know.
I'm just typing into to the net chat what we were just chatting about, the Toronto's World Fair. You said they called it an industrial exhibition.
Industrial exhibition, yeah.
And I'm just seeing
Toronto
what I can find
Industrial.
on when it was.
Oh, I mean, it's 18. The originals would be 18, what, 70s or something
So it
at
says that.
least.
So yeah, it just says
Sometime between 1800 and 1870, because there's 1818 buildings around.
so that was
The
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 that
the
was
world's the fairs were in the 70s, 80s, 90s.
so that was in a Toronto Industrial Exhibition.
Yeah.
Right. So let's see what we can find on that.
In the
Um,
meantime, while you're doing that, I'll show the people.
yeah.
This is the Liberty Grand
Oh,
from above.
oh
So
wow.
this is where we were just standing,
That's
and
incredible.
you're gonna have all of these nodules or copper frequency
That's incredible.
devices from
I've just
above, right?
I've just got a tiny bit of it here, and it says that its primary goal. It opened on the 5th of September, 1879. Primary goal was to encourage innovation and improvement in various sectors by offering medals and prize money to participants. Now, what does that mean? It introduced visitors to innovations such as electric railway transportation and Edison's phonograph and wireless telegraphy. Um, yeah, it doesn't
I
say anything.
think I think Toronto is where it's at. I think Toronto is very important
I
in
think so
the
too.
in the grand. I think it could be a device. What if it is the device that causes the cataclysms?
Yes, yes. If you mess around with the frequency, if you
I
alter the
think
frequency, what can you do? What are you
I think they
capable
could
with?
use Toronto to fry a whole country somewhere else if it's that powerful. We talk about, oh, you would need a
Oh,
lot of energy to be able to do something like that. I think we could do it.
you're going to like this, Mike. You're going to like this. I've just Googled it. It was organized and constructed relatively quickly by today's standards. The exact construction timeline is unknown. Well, that's strange. It wasn't that long ago, but we don't really
We
know.
forgot. It
They
got
the,
the information got burnt in a fire.
they didn't begin the planning until late in 1879, and construction didn't start until early 1878. I beg your pardon. Early 1879 is when construction began.
And they
It,
had an 1879 fair.
they built that in 6 months, the whole grounds and all of those buildings in 6 months. Um, let's see who the architect was.
And don't forget that we're talking about Canada. This is winter. Like there's winter, there's
Yeah, it would have
weather to
been.
deal with.
Yeah.
There's rain, there's weather to deal with. You're right on the water.
Oh, here you go. They do not have a prominent architect associated with the design. At that time, they used temporary structures and repurposed existing buildings. There you
Yeah,
go.
it was
They
just
haven't got an architect for it, but it was
it was like an
only
IKEA kit. It was just a
145 years ago, and they've got no record of the architect or what was there before, but they knocked up that and everything within the grounds in 6 months.
Yep. Wow.
I've got to say that's quite good though, isn't it? Rather than just giving us a bullshit name, they've just said, "Don't know."
We don't know.
That's easier, isn't it? But, in fairness to them, that's a lot easier.
Well, a lot of the buildings in Toronto are credited to a guy named E.J. Lennox, who we're going to go into. He supposedly built Casa Loma and stuff like that, and Queens Park. I don't think he ever existed at all. There's two pictures of him. I think there's one picture of him and one drawing.
Right? Yeah, yeah. Did I tell you about the Crystal Palace exhibition
Oh,
here?
we're about to get to that. We're about to get to that. Hold on a second. I got Crystal Palaces right here.
Because the only reason I was going to mention it is because the interesting story behind that is that the architect won the contract to design it by entering a competition. And within 2 weeks of winning the competition, he was actually on site. But they don't stress that he was living in Australia when he entered the competition. And the only way of him getting from Australia to England would have been by ship. So he applied to design. He entered the competition. He applied. He won and was in on site
2 weeks isn't long enough.
within 2 weeks, and that is about 12 months worth of ship travel for the letter to go out there, him to get on the next ship and come straight over. We're talking maybe a year before that was possible, but 2 weeks. So he had some sort of private jet before they'd invented the plane, which is impressive.
Yeah. So this
So
is our
what
Crystal Palace,
I'm guessing it burnt down.
circa 1880, looking north on Dufferin Street, built in 1858. King and Shaw they moved the building to the exhibition grounds, a couple hundred meters, like
Yeah.
almost, and
Mhm.
enlarged in 1878, that magic year that we were just talking about, but destroyed
Mm.
by fire in 1906.
Yeah. The fires. It's amazing. People who worked at World's Fairs or Crystal Palaces or expositions seem to be really careless. Although we're all arsonists, that
Yeah,
every single one of them has a fire.
yeah.
But how how is it that there are just a few of us? I know that in groups like the ones we're on in Facebook, and that there are, maybe on Facebook there's possibly 500,000 of us, but why do so many people not join the dots and say, hold on a minute, these buildings are an anon I can't
An
get my bloody
anomaly.
word. Thank you. The buildings themselves, they don't look right. They look out of place. They're all very similar. Um, no matter where in the world you're looking at. But more than that, they were built quickly, too quickly to be possible. But even worse still is that nearly every single one of them had a fire, and no one questions it.
Yeah, except Budapest, apparently.
Oh, really?
Budapest. That's what my lunch break says. They didn't have any fires, so why weren't they
Wow.
careless? Why weren't they careless with their candles? What's the
Yeah.
difference? I watched a YouTube video about Crystal Palaces, like literally being made of crystal. Why would they call this a Crystal Palace?
Yeah.
And so if you picture those ice palaces that they'll make for fun, there's some of those in the world made of literal crystal. And
Hmm.
I wouldn't be surprised if it's still here in Toronto and just buried under a hill with something built on top of it.
Yeah.
Or like you can't, sometimes it's not architecturally sound enough to actually build on top of it. So then you just make that a park or something,
Yeah.
right? Um,
Have you heard people talking about golf courses?
Yeah, I discovered it myself before I heard people talking about it. But yeah,
It is a
it's
possibility, isn't it, that you build a golf course over something you don't want anybody to dig?
cemeteries,
Yeah.
ravines, golf courses, parks. Yeah, and in Toronto, they're all lined up perfectly. The cemetery and then the golf course, like
Yeah.
it's pretty obvious that it's they couldn't build there because
Yeah.
of so much underground stuff.
Yeah. That's a very interesting point about these cemeteries. That's one area that no matter what, we're not really going to get away with being able to excavate. So there
Exactly.
could be though, and also, I say this to people a lot. Next time you're in a cemetery, or next time you're passing one, because it's unlikely everybody goes to one, for something to do or for a nice walk. Next time you pass one, stop and go and have a look round just for 5 minutes and see if you can find a grave or a tomb that predates 1776. I'm not talking about when they were born. I'm talking about when they died. See if we can find one that died before 1776. And I've not found one yet. I found
Interesting.
tombs inside these buildings with the letter J, where the first one would be, but I've
or an
never found a
eye.
gravestone. Yeah, or an eye, but never a gravestone. I've never found a grave that's older than 1776. Never. So that would suggest to me that these are relatively recent. And then, of course, it begs the question: what did they do with the dead bodies before then? And some people say, well, they just built grave on top of grave on top of grave. Well, you can't do that because sooner or later you're not going to have any soil to cover the last body with. If the first one's
Yeah.
6 feet under, the next one's going to have to be three.
Yeah.
I mean, you could have, a fox digging that up. It doesn't really make any sense. So
Interesting.
that I think that perhaps the reason that the cemeteries are around the churches is because they're a lot wider
Yeah.
at the lower levels than we've been led to
Hmm.
believe. That is just the peak of the building sticking out the top.
And you get into piezoelectricity
Yeah.
with the bones and the skulls and everything like that too. So that's why a lot of times there will be a cemetery right beside the church. But yeah, like even a Transformers movie, you can imagine a Transformer being buried below a cemetery or something like
Mm,
that, right?
yeah.
So this was our Crystal Palace, and now it's the horticulture building. So we were just
A lot of
at,
those buildings, those World's Fairs have a lot of those horticultural buildings, don't they?
oh, I didn't know that. This is the medieval times building that we were just talking about,
Yeah.
right? But right beside it is the horticulture building. So this is where the Crystal Palace supposedly was, and you can see it's covered in tech.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then you have the curly whirlies all the
Yeah.
time. I don't know what the relevance of that is. I no idea.
My guess would be cymatics.
Yeah, yeah, I guess. Oh, people. Oh, that's true. They could have glowed with the ether, somebody
Yeah.
said.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. So we're still on that. So this is just the beginning of that exhibition ground. So right at that entrance on Dufferin Street, you had the Dufferin Gates. And
Oh, wow.
I love this picture because of this tower in the
Mm.
background.
And if you see to the right of it, you see lower down to the right of that tower. So you've got the gateway into what would have been the city, the Tartarian city. You've got just above it. So if you move your cursor to the other to the now go up slightly above the building.
This,
That
yeah,
that's the
yeah,
that's transmitting energy. That's what
yeah.
those do. Yeah.
We've seen them all. I see them all over Toronto too. In the old pictures, you'll have the power lines, and then
Yeah.
you'll have a second set of power lines.
Yeah, now they'll say that that was for telegrams. Sometimes they'll say they were telegraph poles. But when we see these old
SOS.
pictures, there are hundreds of them and hundreds of cables, and that would suggest that each building had two or three systems of actually transmitting a telegram. No, you didn't. You went to the post office and sent one. There might be one
Hmm.
or two in every town, but you didn't have hundreds of wires everywhere that predate the telephone.
Well, isn't that in wars like in Vietnam or like all the SOS signals, right? Didn't they have to run all that by wire?
Yeah,
Yeah, it's I don't know. That makes me think of
but yeah, I
that.
mean, look at that. That I mean, what are they saying that is? I mean, to 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 the untrained eye, so to speak, that is a pylon, an electricity pylon. But of course, that predates electricity pylons, doesn't it?
Yeah, I don't know what year they say that is.
It
Oh, I see.
just looks like a
Not
Tesla tower with a mast next to it.
totally.
And look at those. I mean, they obviously weren't flagpoles. They're too large to be lightning conductors, and you wouldn't bother putting matching lightning conductors that high on a building that's temporary.
Very good point. And yeah, wow. Sometimes like on Liberty Grand, they'll just put a flag on it.
Yeah,
And it's clearly not a flagpole. It'll be way too high.
yeah.
So it's different. There's over the years, like this is another, it's the same thing, and you can see the medieval times in
Yeah.
the background, but this one
Oh,
this
Empire
one's
year. that previous image had Empire Year on it. It's all the
I
British
noticed that.
bloody Empire, isn't it? And that's what the reference is to, isn't it? The British Empire and all the horrible
Interesting.
things that it's done.
I think Queen Victoria is just
Hmm.
means victory.
Hmm.
This one, I don't know what that is, but I don't know. This is a very cool picture.
It is. Yeah, it is.
It looks even more. So this is 1910 to 1958. And now it's a very simple arch. It's
Yeah. They
nothing
had
now.
they had them everywhere. I mean, they had them all over England. Those arches, and they're all gone. The ones here, there's one left in London, but the rest are gone.
So this is that horticulture building. This is where the
Yeah.
Crystal Palace supposedly was. So that could be the top of that Crystal Palace that we
Oh,
saw.
Mike, sorry,
And
mate, to
you can see,
interrupt you. Have you seen what it says on the front?
yes,
Yeah,
yes.
unbelievable. If you ever wanted your nose rubbed in it,
Yeah.
it's there for you, isn't it?
Isn't that unbelievable? I was excited about showing you that.
That's incredible.
Yeah. So that Crystal Palace, wherever it was, it's that's the top of it. Where'd it go? That right here,
Yeah,
I would assume that that's the top. So
yeah,
we're only seeing this floor that's built in this empty space.
yeah.
Underneath it, you have a whole building. All this was built in the empty space, I think. Or yeah, it's an option. It's a
Wow.
possibility.
Yeah.
So we're back at Fort Ruiz, and the only reason I'm talking about Fort Ruiz is because it
Oh,
looks like a star.
yeah, you got a star fort there. Wow.
But it's
Wow.
not on the list of star forts,
Now that's strange. That is clearly a star fort, isn't it? And
right?
I'm guessing they're saying it's not that old, not as old as it looks. What is
1750, 1759.
1750? Yeah. So, and I imagine what's left of it? Is there nothing left apart from that monument?
I don't think so. It must be underground.
Yeah, be underground. Yeah, yeah,
But you're on the water level, so but the water level has changed over time. They say
sure.
the water level used to be higher and it's gone down. I don't believe it. I think it was lower and it's gone up.
So, would you say, in your opinion, from where that star fort was located, that would serve a defensive purpose? Is there any would there be any need?
Yeah, technically, it's where did we go? It's oh shoot. It's
Around there somewhere?
yeah, it's right on the water. It's right on the water.
So
Yeah.
where would the threat be coming from?
From Niagara Falls, from the States.
Yeah, and
So that's
would they
in
need
the
to go across the water, or could they just go round and get there by without crossing?
it would take an awfully long time.
Right. Okay.
You have to still protect the waterways from submarines and stuff, maybe. I don't know.
And
But
always built near water, the star forts, and they yeah, always.
yeah. Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, they're always by water.
Huh. We have a story. So in the States, they have the story of Paul Revere. So
Yeah,
Paul Revere said the British are coming, the British are coming, right? And that's how they won the war against England was because Paul Revere was just a kid on his horse playing with his ball in the field and managed to warn the army that the British were coming. Well, we have the same story in Canada in the year of what, 1812? Laura Secord warned these guys that the Americans were coming. The Americans were coming, and that's how
yeah,
we won that war. And it's funny because Laura Secord is now a chocolate shop in the mall. So kids going to the mall bored with their parents. Laura Secord was kind of the like you would smell the chocolate. It was like a
yeah,
fantasy. It was like Charlie in the Chocolate Factory
yeah,
kind of. And I really think there's a connection there between selling that story to kids.
yeah.
And even these exhibition grounds, they run us through here as kids so that we're used to it.
Yes, yes.
There's a
It's subliminal,
fair
isn't it?
there. They associate it with fantasy and all that kind of fair type of stuff, so that by the time you're 10 years old, 12 years old, you've already not thought about it. You were talking about why people don't think about the buildings, because they purposely bring us through these buildings as kids so that we get used to them. And then they give us associations like Harry Potter and these
Yeah.
things. They associate them so that we don't think about them. And my other thought on that topic is, now that these things have been, I feel so silly for driving around and not really noticing these, but what else am I missing? What else could somebody tell me that I go, oh my God, I didn't notice that, are we almost there?
It's interesting you say that because it wasn't until 2020 that I stumbled across. I've been down the rabbit hole for years. I joined the Freemasons 20 years ago to find out occulted knowledge and never did. Um, I wonder what else have I missed, because I wasn't aware until the pandemic and I started going on to BitChute about Max Egan and Tartaria. I hadn't looked at it before. Um, and that's relatively a short period of time from then until now, just 5 years on. And I
Hmm.
wonder, a couple of years from now, will somebody say, are you aware of this? Like you said, is there something
Yeah,
else that we've missed? And then it'll
yeah.
become painstakingly obvious. But again, it'll just be a minority of us out there that are seeing the next thing, whatever it is. A bit
Hmm.
like, I don't know if you've heard on the news, but over here, they've just actually announced, the government have announced that they're going to be going up into the sky and spraying with planes, spraying the sky, basically geoengineering or chemtrailing, as we would call it, or cloud seeding, to protect the country from the sun, the harmful rays of the sun. The one thing you do need, vitamin D, the sun to grow and for energy and power, of course, now with everybody having solar panels and wanting a solar powered car, we need the sunlight for that, not just for us. And they're now saying that they're actually going to go up there and spray the sky to block out the sunlight. This is chemtrailing. We've been talking about it for a long time, and everybody said we were mad and it was condensation. And
Yeah.
even now, people think it's a good idea. Oh, that's really good that they're doing that. What does it take, do you think, in your mind? What will it take if the pandemic didn't make people question the narrative and 9/11 didn't wake some people up? What do you think needs to happen for the NPCs to finally have that penny drop and realize that they're being shafted? What do you think it's going to take?
My brain is, the gears are going. I could think in two different directions, but I guess technically, I don't know. I don't know about this, but I'm gonna say it doesn't matter. They don't matter. They're not real, and we don't really have to worry about them. But I know we do. It's a tough thing that I grapple with, but if they really are NPCs in this, and we're gods, or there's something else going on, I don't think there is a way. I don't think there is a way, because you would have to use mainstream media, and mainstream
Mm,
media is already so compromised that it can't happen. So somebody might answer that question by saying an alien invasion. But if there
yeah.
is an alien invasion, it's going to be fake. It's going to
Oh,
be the
absolutely.
government using their reverse engineered, or
Yeah.
depending on if you believe in aliens or not, but you
Yeah,
know what I
I totally agree. I was
mean.
talking to someone this morning about alien abductions, and they asked me what I thought about a particular case. I've forgotten the guy's name now, but it's something like Chris Preslow, Presdo, or something like that. And he was interviewed by CIA and several other bodies about what had happened, and he was convincing, very convincing. No reason to lie. Seems a genuine person. No one's got a bad word to say about him. But as soon as I was told that he claims to have been abducted by aliens, my reaction was, well, that to me is probably the deep state. I don't
Yeah.
think that if there are aliens out there, and I'm sure there are, all sorts of beings from all sorts of different planets, galaxies beyond the ice wall, underwater. Who knows where they're from? But I'm sure there are dozens of different entities and beings. And I don't think that they are who is doing the abduction. And I think these movies we see where like Independence Day, where they take over the world and then destroy everything and everyone in it, or they're abducting people and doing lobotomies and anal probes and everything
Yeah.
else that we're scared of. I think that that is so we have a built-in fear of aliens, when
Yeah.
actually I imagine if they ever did make themselves present
They'd
to
be trying to
us,
save us from our captors.
yeah, absolutely. We've got to, yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. We've sort of got Stockholm syndrome where we in the event of something like that happening, we would turn to the people we despise for help, our government.
Yeah. Yeah. What's the first thing they say when they come? Take us to your leader.
Yeah,
So this is the shrine. This is right beside where we're talking about now, the Fort Ruy, that monument that's the only thing left. This is there, and this is just pointing at Niagara Falls, basically, at
who do
Buffalo
they
and
claim
stuff.
that the statue is of? Who do they claim that? Because obviously
I
we
don't
can see
know. It's just
it
a
looks.
peace memorial.
So we've got an angel with what looks like Roman laurels stood on top of what may have been a depiction of the Earth or a globe with Roman, with sorry,
Egyptian.
Egyptian pharaohs around it.
Yeah.
I mean, are they hands or yeah? So we've got female Egyptian pharaohesses with an angel stood on top, and
Clock
oh, I
tower
love
in the
the clock
background.
tower in the background. Of course, I imagine that all lines up, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Now, what
Yeah,
on
strange
earth
thing to
is
have
that?
there, right? And
What's
it's
it?
right. Go
Sorry.
ahead.
No, I was just going to say, do you know what they call her? Is she got a name? Do they say it is
No,
this? So they just call
no.
it the Shrine Peace Memorial.
Yeah.
They were running out of ideas, weren't they, when they repurposed that?
I think I might know where it was taken from. Let me tell me what you think about this. So, you have the Garden of the Greek Gods right beside it, which are these
Right.
stone. They're not
Okay.
they're not entirely lifelike. That like I wouldn't say that they're actually petrified humans necessarily, like
No.
some people think that some of them are. But it's there's the Garden of the Greek Gods right beside that thing.
Crikey.
Um, let's go. So this is the gates. This is called Prince's Gates, and this is right at the exhibition grounds. This is the
Yeah,
entranceway to the World's Fair, to the exhibition or whatever.
that's
And
incredible.
that same exact font that I was talking about on
Yeah.
the Liberty Grand.
Hmm.
And I'm curious about the different colors here.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. You don't.
even
Yeah.
so, was that statue, was it here at one point?
Now, who? Yeah. Yeah, I see what you mean. And who is she or he?
No idea.
Another
I don't.
angel, but we don't know. No name. They just built
Uh,
it for fun.
Mystery North goes into it, but I can't watch it because I need to get some information out. I freak out if I watch stuff too much.
Hmm.
I need to, I'm making posts, I'm taking days off work to explain stuff. And yeah, but they're different colors. Like you see these different colors, but those different colors also mirror in the statues. So
Yeah.
this one's very white and this one's not,
Yeah.
right? And then you have a
Hmm.
horse, some horses here, and yeah, Mystery North goes into some of the that stuff, but I haven't delved enough into it yet. I'm looking forward to it in the future. This shape right here, I see all over the city in important
Hmm.
places. Those little squares there. I'd love to find out more about what those do. If they glow with the ether or something. But people, they take us through here as kids. People drive
Yeah.
past here on their way to work every day, and nobody really thinks about it. Nobody really
Mm.
looks at it.
That's
Um,
incredible, isn't it?
that's one of my favorite spots in the whole city because it's so strange.
This is always what fascinates me with more so America, Canada. New Zealand and Australia, that we're told that until the English popped along, that there wasn't really anything going on there, and that this is all relatively new. These buildings
Yeah,
are all new, but to me, I feel like I'm looking at a part of Rome or Greece,
for sure.
hundreds of years old. But of course, it isn't. And as we saw, all of this, this is all part of the World's Fair, the industrial exhibition,
Yeah,
all built in 6 months. It's
yeah.
incredible.
In Canada. This one too, there's some beings there, and then the brown and the white mixed
Yeah,
together.
that's strange, isn't it? Like they've replaced certain parts of them.
So right about here, behind these trees, in this general area here, you have what's called the Coca-Cola Coliseum, and it's also called the Horse Palace. The Horse Palace. So those horses that would be going to that medieval times, they're kept in this building that I'm about to show you.
Right.
And the horses, another of note, which we'll get to in another with Casa Loma, we
Uh-huh.
have the Casa Loma stables beside Casa Loma, which is this huge, unbelievable building that they say was built for horses.
Hmm.
So this is another horse palace right
Oh wow.
here. And this is just where the RCMP keeps their horses there too, like the Royal Canadian Mounted Police
Yeah.
keeps their horses in here too. But the reason that I love this so much is because it's on the Gardiner Expressway. So they've built this highway just in front of this building, and a million people drive past this and just don't think about this.
Yeah. Yeah.
So could have been a charger for an airship.
Hmm.
The airship would have been coming across the water from Niagara Falls or from Chicago or from the States, right?
Hmm.
I think. And then but either way, those are for electricity. You can see the technology there.
Yeah. 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 Absolutely. I would say that that's exactly what they are.
So
That
this is a
that
Coliseum.
that's
They play hockey in there. And I like to talk about just the size. You'll look at a building like say that church that we looked at the beginning that was on Roncy.
hmm.
You'll look at with the pillars in front of it.
Yeah.
You sometimes it's deceptive how big these buildings are when you go inside of them. You'll
Yeah.
you'll see like like an opera house or something
Hmm.
downtown Toronto, and it doesn't look like a huge building, but when you go into it, it's just this massive building.
Yeah.
So it just gives you an idea of the power that could be resonated inside of it, as well as the amount of things that could be going on in it if it was covered in dirt and
Yeah.
it became underground, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Sure.
So wrapping up here, I think we're on our last couple of slides. Um, this is the Bastion, and you'll even have
Oh,
Bastion Street right
right.
here. This is the what's the word? Where the army is,
Yeah.
right? You
Yeah.
have
Like, yeah.
there's where is it?
Oh, wow. Yeah.
There's supposed to be a tank. This is 2011. Right now there's a tank here,
Right.
but you can see some things. You can see the mud flood
Yeah.
when
Absolutely.
or that's why I think it's tongue in cheek. This wasn't just oops, the mud was there. Like they've dug this, they've graded this
Yeah.
purposely for some reason. So of course the mud flood, a bunch of mud could have fallen on the earth, but where they chose to disperse it is another conspiracy theory in itself.
Yeah. Sure.
So you have the carving, the engravings and stuff, and the balcony windows is interesting, right? We've been
Yeah.
talking about that. And behind it, you have the gardener going over, and this is just the engineering. I know it looks like 1950s engineering. I just, something in the back of my mind, every time I look at this, it's just it was hard to build. It was a lot of engineering went into building that across the whole city. And yes, they could have done that in the 50s, but
Hmm.
I'm suspicious. I'm
Yeah.
suspicious.
So you think perhaps something was already there and they've
They've
repurposed
built on top of the structural, like the old one was there, the
foundations of it, kind
the
of.
foundations, yeah.
Mm. Hmm.
I forget, there's a word for on a bridge for what those things are called, but I can't, it's escaping me right now. But yeah, I don't know. That's the BMO field. That's they play soccer there. So this is the whole grounds. You have the Prince's Gates where we just were.
Yeah.
This is the palace. This is the horse palace. This
Coca-Cola
is
Coliseum. Just saw that.
the Coca-Cola Coliseum. Isn't that unbelievable, right?
Mm.
That they give it to these families. They give it to these companies or these corporations. It's not a bank or insurance place like we were saying before,
Mm.
but if the corporations are married to the government, then Coca-Cola
Yeah.
Coliseum is still a government building, right?
Yeah. Yeah, of course. Yeah. Yeah, you're exactly right. Yeah.
And then you have BMO Field. A lot of stuff. There's a lot of history here. A lot of strange things have happened here. You have the islands here, which is another important part of Toronto. Very, very interesting area. And I had more. I was going to go into CN Tower and Scotiabank Arena and stuff, but that'll have to go, I guess, for another day because how are we doing for time?
What? I don't know. Let's have a quick look. Oh, crikey. Yeah. Yeah. I tend to just do them for about an hour
Yeah.
because the sort of feedback I've had is
I
after an
wasn't sure
hour,
how long it would
people are,
take us, so I had more prepared, but I think that's a great place to stop for now
yeah,
because
I think it's fantastic. And
I'm
we'll
super
continue
satisfied.
this. Yeah, we'll have to continue this. This is amazing. I really appreciate you sharing this. I just can't
Thanks.
get over how many buildings there are that look the same on the corners of all of these streets, on the corners of these blocks.
Yeah.
Your World's Fair, out of all of the World's Fairs I've looked at, that's the only one I've come across where they haven't named the architect, and that's also one of the fastest build times. 9 months was previously the fastest I'd seen.
Oh
That
yeah.
one's 6 months. That's
6 months.
fastest. A fire, and the only one where they haven't named the architect. That is really, really unusual and worth digging into, I think. But I really appreciate you sharing this with us, Mike. It's
I
fascinating.
appreciate the forum to do it. I want to spread this knowledge. I drive around just wishing I could scream it from the rooftops and so I really appreciate you giving me the opportunity to tell more people about it. That's my ultimate goal is just for more people to be doing this
Mm.
for so many different reasons. So I can get some help, but also so that we can start working on competing with the mass media and starting to wake up NPCs, or if that's possible, I believe it is. I don't believe that they're born without souls and they can
No,
never.
I don't believe that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't believe that either. I'm asked all the time, do clones have a soul? And I think, well, let's take cloning in its most basic form and its oldest form. If we look at the story of Adam and Eve, that God takes one of Adam's ribs and creates
Yeah.
Eve. So are we saying that 50% of the first people to be present on this planet were soulless, i.e., Eve? Of course not. I think it's built in within your DNA. And I think some of us carry information in our DNA that goes back further than others. And that's perhaps to do with you know, how far back our ancestry goes. And some people can trace this all the way back to the very beginning, they claim. And I guess they're carrying memories within their DNA through their bloodline. And whereas someone, let's say, if someone was cloned in the early 1800s, then they may only have 250 years worth of ancestral memory within their DNA, just like water carries information and memory.
Right.
So I think people who, if you can trace your family tree back much further than that, then and legitimately, I don't mean like on ancestry.com and places like that, but if you can actually trace your family tree back a lot further, then it may well be that the reason you're awake and you're looking at all of these anomalies is because it doesn't sit right with you, because there's an inbuilt memory that's telling you something is wrong. This isn't how things used to look or be. This isn't how we were supposed to live. And it's in the back of your mind, and it's almost like that sort of inner dialogue. It's eating away all the time. So you're questioning things. And for people who can't trace their ancestry back that far, that perhaps descend from clones relatively recently, then they're not going to have that same information. So they don't see anything's wrong.
Interesting. I that makes a lot of sense to me. It makes me think of how people in the Bible lived for 6, 7, 8, 900
Yeah.
years.
And they were bloody tall as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If if the if the timeline has been messed with and it's really the year, let's say 1025 right now, and Jesus
Hmm.
was born in the year one, then you have 1025 years. If my grandfather lived 600 years, my dad lived 600 years, and I lived 600 years, then my dad or my grandpa could have known Jesus, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Absolutely.
that's a very interesting new part that you put, because since I was a kid, I've been called an old soul and all that kind of stuff, had
Hmm.
knowledge and memories of things that I didn't know. I never considered that some people, that they've purposely closed that loop for some
Yes.
people. That's so interesting.
You could sort of consider that maybe that there's an element of reincarnation, and I'm on the fence with this, but I've heard some pretty compelling stories about it. But is it possible that we are reincarnated, or some of us are?
I think
And
so.
I think that there may be two reasons. Like some people say, if you don't get it right, then you come back and have another go. But what if you get it really right? What if you make a difference? Do you come
Mhm.
back again because they want another you doing that all over again? So there could be
They
two
could give you the
reasons.
choice. Since I was a kid, I've wondered if I was given the choice to come here, and I said, "Oh, really? I got to go back there again?" But
Mm,
okay, if I can wake up more people, I guess instead of
exactly.
going outside the firmament or going to the next dimension or going to heaven or going to one of these technological places, maybe we do have the choice
Mm.
of coming back. I've thought about that a lot for a long, long time.
I think as I've got older, I've thought about it a lot more because it wasn't so relevant when I was young. I was too busy having a good time, and I thought it's so far away. And I figured that when you die, you just end. That's it. And the older I've got, the more I've hoped there's something else, but also been scared, a little bit scared that what happens next might be bumpy. And it's just as you get older, it becomes more relevant. I think you're thinking, well, let's say I've got 30 years left. I'm going to have to deal with this a lot sooner than I thought. And 30 years ago, I didn't give a shit. I was having a good time, but I think as you get older, you start to think about these things differently,
Yeah,
because
for sure.
it becomes not urgent, but it's certainly got more urgency than it did 30 years ago. When
I'm not
before,
scared. I'm not scared. I've had periods of fear in my life, but most of my fear has been based inside of our reality, being scared of Trump or being scared of this or that. But
yeah,
ultimately, on a spiritual, universal level, I'm not scared.
that's kind of where they want you to be. They want you to be
Yeah.
scared of everything. Um, Before we go, one thing I would like to ask you is, are you all right to turn the screens off?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I can only see a little you in the corner.
Oh, I forgot
Yay!
about that.
Welcome back. Um, Before we go, one thing I wanted to ask you was if you could pick any conspiracy theory at all. Let's say you're in a bar and you want to get a conversation going. What's your favorite?
I've been a hip hop fan my whole life, from a very, very young age. And Mainstream music, mainstream rap, I believe has been taken over from the beginning, and the mainstream rappers serve the agenda, and they convinced us to smoke marijuana. They sold us on a lot of these things. If you take our grandparents' generation to our generation, music and rap music kind of made a lot of decisions for us. Like when there was school shootings, it was like, let's see what Eminem and Marilyn Manson have to say about this.
Mm,
Like, why were they in
mm,
charge of that? And
yeah.
they're using music to just brainwash people. And it's I've been into hip hop my whole life, but I went very underground in the mid 90s because of Puff Daddy. And because immediately when I heard Puff Daddy, I was like, this is not a real rapper. This is commercial.
Yeah.
This is manipulation and stuff. And then now we see in the end, how do we know he wasn't messing with the music? How do we know he wasn't putting
Yeah.
mind control tones or even just subliminal messaging to make people more promiscuous or
Hmm.
this or that? It's 100%. I do not listen to mainstream rap anymore, ever, never.
Mm. I think you're right. I do agree. If you look at what they did with the church bells and music, the Rockefeller Institute changed the frequency to a worldwide standard of 440 hertz. That was specifically done. So the music was being played in the wrong frequency. So we've got this kind of feeling of despair or anger where we should feel euphoric when we listen to music.
Like oppressive architecture. It's oppressive
Yes.
frequencies or whatever.
Yeah, I totally
Yeah,
agree.
for sure. All the legalize it, Bob Marley, Cypress Hill. It seems to me
Mm,
now, looking back, that they were working for the government because who we thought that we were fighting the government to legalize weed,
mm,
but we weren't. They're profiting off of it. They made it look
yeah.
like they were against it so that we would fight them, and then they'd give us,
Yeah.
if it's problem reaction solution technique.
Yeah, yeah, you're exactly right. Yeah, yeah, exactly right. And then the theory with Tupac, I mean, I've heard that he was an FBI agent, that he's now living in Cuba. People have sent me images of him over the years wandering around, and
Yeah,
you just
that's
don't know, do you?
That's a red herring, I think. Now, I think it's just to get us looking in the opposite direction. It was
Hmm.
planned. It was planned. Like there always has to be like they'll sacrifice Jimi
Mm,
Hendrix. They'll sacrifice these people, though the kid who fell off from One Direction, who fell off the balcony and stuff.
yeah.
Every generation they needed to traumatize me. That's what
Mm,
Tupac and Biggie's murders were just
mm.
scripted to traumatize a generation.
Have a look at the date that Biggie was killed, and I'm
March
fairly,
9th.
9/3 or
Yeah,
3/9. Yeah,
yeah,
it's always those dates. And if you look, the emergency services in America, 9/11, Jesus's
yeah.
birthday, 9/11, the Twin Towers, 9/11, 369, and then the angel number of 11. They do things on
Tupac
specific
is
dates.
September 7th, I think he died. And then there was his last album was called The 7 Day Theory.
Sure,
Machiavelli, The 7 Day Theory,
surely
which
that's just a
Machiavelli
coincidence.
came back from the dead. But if you talk about Tupac, you have to talk about Snoop Dogg, and I think
Hmm.
Snoop Dogg is really the tip of everything. He released a song called "Murder Was the Case," where he straight up told us that he sold his soul to the devil,
Yeah.
and now he's carrying the torch at the Olympics as a
Hmm.
chronic weed smoker. We legalized marijuana for medical reasons, not
Mm.
for chronic weed smoking to be
Yeah.
fucked up all day long.
Yeah.
Why is Snoop Dogg carrying the torch, which is the symbolic of the joint or the blunt or whatever,
Hmm.
to in a place where you're not allowed to smoke marijuana, where a Canadian snowboarder was kicked out for smoking marijuana? Why is Snoop Dogg allowed to be there?
Yeah.
And then Snoop Dogg lineage goes to Kendrick Lamar, which is not like us, which is why they're playing it at all the sporting events,
Hmm.
the Super Bowl and everything, because it's this division. It's
Yes.
turning the people against each
Oh
other,
yeah.
being like, we're this group and you're that group. We fight each other so much that we don't fight the government. And I think that's
Exactly.
the not like us psyop is breaking us into little gangs. Insane Clown Posse, Swifties, Believers. We're all these little gangs now. And then you
Mm,
have gang members like Snoop Dogg and Kendrick Lamar in these huge places.
mm. Divide and conquer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, Mike, thank you. I really
Thank
enjoyed that.
you.
I thought
Can't
that
wait
was
till next time.
fascinating. Yeah,
Can't
we'll
wait
have to
till
do it
next
again.
time.
Yeah, we'll do it again in a couple of weeks.
Cool.
Have another deep dive. But I really appreciate you coming on. So
Thanks. You too.
thanks so much, Mike.
For sure. See you soon.